Hey peeps, here with a deep dive into Psychic Witch, a metaphysical guide to meditation, magic, and manifestation. Book review. I really enjoyed this book, and there's a lot here, so I got notes. Settle in with a drink and a snack if you want. Uncover the secrets to becoming a powerful psychic witch. Popular writer and witch Auryn, sorry if I butchered that, reveals his most closely guarded tips, practices, and meditations for unlocking your psychic abilities and elevating your witchcraft into exciting new territory. Featuring over 90 exercises, this groundbreaking book helps your magic and your senses reach their full potential. Witchcraft and psychicism are two sides of the same coin. They complement and strengthen one another. Psychic Witch provides everything you need to not only master the perception and manipulation of energy, but also to perform magic anywhere and at any time. This ingenious book teaches you how to use subtle energy in new ways and manifest your perceptions into instant magical results. So yeah, that's that. As you can see, got a lot of tabs. So, about all the exercises, there's a lot of them. Some of them, as I said, there's 90. I have aphantasia, so some of this shit doesn't work for me, but some of it, does. There's so many, even if not all of them work for you specifically, I truly believe, you can find something that works for you. We're just all different, especially in our heads. There's also a lot of information. There's also some correspondences, as well as spells. It's all really simple to understand. Mystics and visionaries of different religions and spiritual paths have often proclaimed that God is love, or that everything is composed of a divine love. Centering in the heart is communion with the universe as the divine heart and divine mind. Witches refer to this state of connected centeredness as perfect love and perfect trust. Centering is a paradoxical state of personal empowerment and surrender to the all. Perfect love is recognizing the divinity within all things in existence and understanding that there's a unifying force of intelligence that runs through and embodies everything. A numinous quintessence. Perfect trust is surrendering your personal egoic sense of self to the unified universal consciousness. Perfect love and perfect trust is a similar idea, except we're working with putting ourselves in harmony with the love of all, with the love of the all, and trusting the energy that we receive. We're tuning into a frequency that is beyond ourselves and our perception of what defines self, and bringing that awareness to a concentrated center within our hearts. We are taking the realms of inner and outer, above and below, other and self, and centering that as one space within ourselves. This embodies the Hermetic axiom of as above, so below, as within, so without, and unifying it. I never really completely understood what perfect love and perfect trust meant before. But this makes a lot more sense, especially since the spiritual awakening I had last year, seeing that we're all actually one, and that separation is an illusion. A necessary illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. And that there is, everything, literally everything is a part of God, Source, the Divine, whatever word you want to use. I'm like, oh, so now I get it. That's what that means. And then here there's talking about the lower self, your emotions and whatnot, and the middle self, your mind, and the higher self. And at first, it sounds one kind of way, but then I realized it's literally just about the direction, and that it's all necessary and equal. It's literally just direction, I think. Anyway, the lower self is the name used for our body and our primal emotional aspects of ourselves. Humans are animals, and this is the aspect of ourselves that is animal. The second soul is the middle self, which is a name used for our mind, and is the aspect of ourselves that differentiates us from other animals. This is our human aspect. It's the part of ourselves that reasons, plans, analyzes, and reminisces on the past. The final soul is the higher self, which is a name for the spirit. This is the part of ourselves that is the closest to divinity. Have you ever heard the phrase that we're spiritual beings having a human experience? Or perhaps you've heard that you don't have a soul, you are a soul with a body? I've said both of those things long ago. and heard them many times from many people. These both refer to the higher self. It's the part of us that is eternal. And also, lower self, middle self, higher self, mind, body, spirit, no matter what you call it, it's in so many religions, and so is the number 3, absolutely everywhere. I've noticed that. So, there's that. It's the higher self that keeps directing the reincarnation process, while paradoxically never leaving its connection with Source. The higher self records its experiences in the Akashic records, which can be seen as the memory of the collective. The higher self of every human is connected at a higher level and at a higher consciousness. Our higher self has awareness of this unity of consciousness, which we might refer to as the collective consciousness. This also means that the higher self has access to all memories of life on Earth and an understanding that these memories are also a part of its experiences, since the higher self understands that we are all unified at a deeper level. This is also why 300 people can remember living as Cleopatra. The person who lived as Cleopatra, like all humans, was composed of more than one soul aspect, so her experiences have dissolved into different streams from which new lives have emerged. The new lives emerge with the possibility of having access to those memories of Cleopatra's life as a life they experienced as well. They have access to these memories because they're shared through the higher self. Another possible reason many people may share the memory of being a single person in a past life is because that person was an ancestor and they're sharing an ancestral genetic memory of that individual. That was something I used to wonder about, so I'm like, now suddenly makes more sense to me, how that can happen. The closest psychological parallel that the middle self has is that of the ego. While the middle self isn't the ego itself, the ego is a part of the middle self and helps us understand what the middle self is. In modern spiritual teachings, there's a bit of confusion surrounding the concept of the ego. Most condemn what they call the ego when they're really condemning ego inflation, which is an exaggerated sense of self-importance, superiority, or arrogance. This has led to a bit of confusion around the use of the word ego in spirituality. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the ego, as it's a sense of individuality, personality, and personal expression. However, the conflation with the ego and ego inflation has been used by abusive spiritual teachers and cult leaders to have one abandon a sense of self with the purpose of dominating the individual. The ego is then diminished to the point of lack of self-worth and low self-esteem. In witchcraft, we tend to not paint things with a broad brush when it comes to morality, nor are we quick to lump things into a concept of good and bad. A healthier division, from my perspective, is to discern whether something is in balance or out of balance. A balanced ego has a healthy sense of self-esteem and identity, while an unbalanced ego always puts the self before others, or, on the other hand, always puts others before the self. Finding a healthy balance of empowerment is important. In witchcraft, a balanced use of power is having power with others and self, not having power over others or self. Which is also something I've been realizing with the whole spiritual community. Heard both you're supposed to get rid of the ego and also you can't get rid of the ego, which you can't actually get rid of the ego. If you're trying to get rid of it, that's impossible. This makes sense to me. Balanced, working with others and the self, not over others and the self. If somebody's trying to tell you to get rid of the ego, you might want to run away from them because that's impossible. And they might be trying to manipulate you. Or they could just be confused, which is probably more common. But still, the separation is an illusion, but it's a necessary illusion. We're here to learn lessons, at least that's part of the reason we're here, and to experience being human and being alive, which is why we need the ego, aka the sense of self. That's a requirement to do that. You just need a healthy ego, not an inflated one, or a lack of a healthy one. The power of inquiry. To me, the question mark is the most sacred symbol of the witch. For we dare to ask the heretical questions, writes Southern conjurer, witchcraft elder, and fairy seer Orion Foxwood. This is a compelling statement. When I was a child, I was raised in a very religious household. I remember my inquisitiveness got me in a lot of trouble at Sunday school, but it also opened up a whole avenue of exploration outside of the church's grasp. Questioning theological and philosophical holes in what we were taught was greatly frowned upon. After all, the serpent of the garden was the first creature ever to ask questions, leading to Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge. Surely those types of questions came from heretical thinking. At least, that's what my elders in the church assured me. For example, I was taught 3 things that were contradictory. The first was that God is omniscient and knows everything about the past, present, and future. The second was that God was all-loving. The third was that God sent those to eternal suffering who turned away from his commandments. Meditating on these made me uneasy. I asked, why would God send us to suffer for all eternity if he was all-loving? A question I've wondered my entire life. I was told that it was because we were given free will by God to choose that path. This was incorrect, as technically the serpent gave humanity free will. Yes, but if God is omniscient and he knows what we're going to choose before he even creates us, why would he create us knowing that we freely choose to go against his commandments and have us suffer for all eternity? If he truly loved us, wouldn't he either not create us or end our existence instead of torturing us for all eternity? Those questions didn't go over well, and I was punished when I went home after my Sunday school teacher had a chat with my guardians. I remember the words my Sunday school teacher used to try to silence my questions, which only made me question deeper. Who are we to question God? She rhetorically and dismissively asked me. For me, this was a brilliant question. Who are we? Who is God? Why are we? Why is God? These were questions that boggled my mind and began a thirst for an understanding that has not been quenched to this day. Questions are more important than answers. The power of questions and critical contemplation are a driving force behind the development of civilization. Questions have been the singular, most important aspect of human existence. I can only imagine our far ancestors asking questions such as, why do plants grow? How can I stay warm? Why are we here? Where did we come from? I cannot help but see inquiry as the driving force behind science, philosophy, religion, and all innovation in history. Questions have the power to inspire, illuminate, stimulate, create, or destroy. If we want to take on the great mysteries and grow as individuals, witches and psychics, we must ask questions. Questioning is the only way that witchcraft will ever evolve in the future, as inquiry is the predecessor of all great shifts and progress. Our middle self has the power of intellect and the power to truly explore our universe around us through critical thinking and questioning. When teaching witchcraft and psychic ability, I always encourage questions, not only to ensure that everyone is grasping what I'm sharing, but because I usually learn something myself or discover a question I hadn't contemplated yet. And so, if free will is good, then explain why we got it from the evil serpent. But if we had no free will, if we got free will from the serpent, then apparently God wanted us to not have any free will, which would mean we'd be slaves to God, to a so-called loving God. No, fuck you? And then the whole eternal hell thing? Like, that's not loving. In my opinion, if I use the word hell, it's metaphorically. I don't think there's an eternal hell with a cackling Satan and eternal hellfire. I don't. But I now say the divine and God of everything, so I believe in God, but I don't believe in hell. However, when I say metaphorically, I think we can put ourselves in hell, like a hell of our own making. And we all do it, to some extent. I've done it, you've done it, they've done it, everybody does it. We make our own versions of hell. However, because they're a hell of our own making, only we can break ourselves out of it. But we can. It's not easy. It's a lot easier said than done. But that's the way it is, in my opinion. And then also heaven, I wish I could remember where I heard it from. But heaven is also, like, inside of us as well. And it's all basically metaphorical. But also, we can make our own heaven or hell right here on Earth. And you can see we're not exactly going in the right direction, but anyway. these are just, you don't have to agree with everything I'm saying. You really don't. This is just a deep dive into the book and my opinions. In the fairy tradition of witchcraft, the shadow self is seen as an externalized projection of ourselves that is sometimes referred to as the shadow lover or the shadow twin. And also, I hope to make people question, even if you end up not agreeing with me. I think questioning and critically thinking is something we should all be doing, even if we end up with different answers. Anyway, in the fairy tradition of witchcraft, the shadow self is seen as an externalized projection of ourselves that is sometimes referred to as the shadow lover or the shadow twin. The shadow lover is an aspect of our lower self. Witchcraft is a crooked path between seemingly different polarities and is also a path of alchemical purification, of taking these opposite aspects and unifying them into wholeness. This alchemical union of two different parts is an important motive in many witchcraft traditions, whether it's the masculine and feminine divine coming together in the great rite, or the god of light and the horned god coming together to battle each other throughout the year on Sabbats, or the divine twins as serpent and dove merging together as the blue god. The focus is on the merging of opposites. The Kabbalion, an esoteric text that discusses the principles of the nature of reality, points out two important things to keep in mind here. And sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. The first, which the Kabbalion refers to as the principle of polarity, is that everything has a polar opposite. There is light and darkness, male and female, hot and cold, but the idea of polarity can only fully be understood through the next principle, which is the principle of rhythm. The principle of rhythm states that everything is a spectrum between the two poles that are constantly in flux. Gender is a spectrum, as is light and darkness and temperature. Both Jung and many occult traditions place an emphasis on combining opposites into wholeness. Jung refers to this idea as individuation, which is acknowledging the aspects of ourselves that we are unconscious of and integrating them into our sense of self. In alchemy, this is referred to as the great work, and in occult traditions, including many witchcraft traditions, Baphomet is a symbol of that great work. So, learning, not just through this, but also online over the past year and whatnot, learning that alchemy was never literal kind of screws up my favorite book, Frankenstein, because apparently Mary Shelley thought it was literal too. And a whole lot of people, apparently it's not literal. So, anyway, in alchemy, this is referred to as the great work, and in occult traditions, including many witchcraft traditions, Baphomet is a symbol of that great work. One of my teachers refers to Baphomet as the great initiator. Baphomet is a symbolic image created by occultist Eliphas Levi, which was based on the trials of the Knights Templars in the 14th century. The image may appear frightening at first, but I believe that's part of the intention. The image, contrary to popular belief, is not an image of the devil, but rather an image of the universe as a force and intelligence, and a portrayal of the Greek god Pan, whose name was compared by ancient Greeks with the word Pan, which means all. Levi writes that the image of Baphomet is the key to all magic, as it is the source of all magical energy, which he and many occultists of his time referred to as astral light. Baphomet is the image of all the forces of the universe, combined into one symbolic entity. Baphomet is male and female, light and dark, all the classical elements, animal and man, above and below, angel and demon. On Baphomet's upraised arm is the word solve, an alchemical term for breaking down of elements. On his lowered arm is the word coagula, which is an alchemical term for uniting elements together. It is the source from which all things come and to which all things return, just as the traditional prayer in the fairy tradition states. Holy Mother, in you we live, move, and have our being. From you all things emerge, and unto you all things return. The Wiccan Charge of the Goddess, written by Doreen Valiante, states similarly, For I am the soul of nature, who giveth life to the universe. For me all things proceed, and unto me must all things return. In the Golden Dawn, the phrase, O soul of nature, giving life and energy to the universe, from thee all things do proceed, unto thee all must return, is recited in ritual. Both Gerald Gardner and Aleister Crowley state that Pan is the all-devourer and all-begetter. They are referencing the same divine force that is embodied within the image of Baphomet. Victor Anderson is quoted as saying God is self and self is God, and God is a person like myself. Similarly, in Aleister Crowley's Gnostic Mass, the line, "There is no part of me that is not of the gods," is spoken. For me, this suggests the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without, as well as the idea of a holographic universe wherein we are fractals of the larger structure. Containing within us everything of the larger structure, we are not only a part of the universe, but we are also a microcosm of the universe itself. We are not only a part of Baphomet, but we are also Baphomet ourselves. Therefore, our work is the great work of the universe, to know ourselves in all parts, which is the key to magical and psychic connection and mastery. So like it says, Baphomet is all the forces of the universe combined into one symbolic entity. Male and female, light and dark, all the classical elements, animal and man, above and below, angel and demon. As a picture of Baphomet. Slight rant, this spiritual community, for many more reasons than this, has been kind of driving me nuts lately. So I saw a video on transhumanism. It was not about transhumanism at all. It was about trans people. If you're new here, I'm a trans man. I'm a transsexual man, and I hate transhumanism. The video was talking about trans people the entire time. I agreed with the video. That wasn't the problem. The problem was it was calling it transhumanism, which has nothing to do with trans people. Transhumanism, the belief or theory that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations, especially by means of science and technology. Basically trying to make us freaking robot cyborg people. That is transhumanism. It has zero to do with transsexual people such as myself. In another video, which I also basically agreed with, so again, that wasn't the problem, in the middle of it mentioned, or showed a picture of Baphomet and called it the devil. So I'm like, okay, you say this is about transhumanism, and then you make a whole video about trans people, which has nothing to do with transhumanism whatsoever, which means anybody who knows what transhumanism is, clicks on the video, starts hearing you talk about trans people, is probably going to click right off, because it looks like you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. At all. And I'm really trying to be calm here, but there's so many other things I'm not even going to get into. And then the freaking Baphomet is like, great. Another reason why people who know that that's not the devil and that that's Baphomet are going to click right off, as if you have no idea what you're talking about. Could we please research stuff before you talk about it? That is not the definition of transhumanism, and that is not the devil. I am so sick of this shit. I'm really sorry. I wanted to be calm for this, but there's so much more I'm not even going into. But now moving on. The higher self is our divine consciousness. It's an aspect of yourself that has never left divinity. It has been referred to as the personal God, the Holy Spirit, Holy Soul, or the Holy Demon. I'm not sure if that's actually how you say that word, because it's D-A-E-M-O-N. I think it is, but which is a Greek term for spirit, not a demon in the popular sense. Which, that was news to me. I was very confused by that word for so long. I'm like, why are you just misspelling demon? I'm confused. Then I get it. It's a Greek term for spirit, not a demon in the popular sense. So, to repeat that, the higher self is our divine consciousness. It's an aspect of yourself that has never left divinity. It has been referred to as the personal God, the Holy Spirit, Holy Soul, or the Holy Demon. It is the part of us that is perfect, eternal, and consistent through each lifetime. It is beyond time and space and isn't linear at all. It is one with the whole universe, and its full nature is slightly beyond our scope of complete understanding. The higher self is aware of all of our incarnations and oversees our experiences in those incarnations. As mentioned earlier, before we incarnate, the higher self is looking to have specific human experiences and also to fulfill a role in its incarnation, or in its interaction with other higher selves. The higher self connects with a stream of ancestors and creates a contract. The ancestors provide the physical vessel of a body, and the higher self delivers the spirit. They unite together to form the middle self of personality. This is paralleled in alchemy, where three elements are emphasized: mercury, sulfur, and salt. Alchemy is greatly misunderstood as being literal instead of the exploration of spirituality and experimenting with transmuting the self. In alchemy, salt is born from the union of sulfur and mercury, two elements that are seen as opposite combined into one. Among these many layers of meaning and association with these elements, we also understand that sulfur refers to the higher self, mercury to the lower self, and salt to the middle self. So again, higher self mixed with lower self creates the middle self. Hence the whole alchemy is not literal thing. So, true will, our divine purpose. The role and mission that the higher self is looking to fulfill is its purpose of incarnating onto the planet. This higher purpose, the desire of the higher self, is often referred to as the true will, meaning the primary drive of the higher self for this incarnation. Occultist Aleister Crowley coined the term true will. Being in alignment with your true will doesn't mean that life will be easy or free of conflict, and not everyone will discover or fulfill their true will in a lifetime. Your true will is not one singular thing to accomplish, but I think it's better to think of it as a journey instead of a destination. Being in alignment with your higher self is like having a compass that will help direct you along that journey. To come to know our true will, we must transcend the ego and the middle self's desires. Crowley referred to the desires and wishes of the ego and external motivations as the lust of results, and stated that true will should be fulfilled without resistance or the lust of results. So basically, stop desiring outcomes. Like, just do it and whatever happens, is what my understanding is. Which is talked about in a lot of different religions. When we are in alignment with our higher self, we begin to have direction in life and are fulfilling our true will. True will is the conversation between spirit and the higher self. The higher self speaks through synchronicity, symbolism, and revelations. We come to know the nature of our true will through aligning with the higher self. And speaking of synchronicities, anybody been seeing a bunch of the same numbers? When you are in alignment with your higher self, you can express and experience divine love and divine grace, or in the terminology of witchcraft, perfect love and perfect trust. We experience deep states of peace, harmony, and union with other people. In the Kabbalion, which popularized these hermetic concepts and axioms, it states that the nature of the physical universe is composed of thoughts emanating from the All, or the universal mind of Source. This notion suggests that we as humans, having the ability to think, conjure, hold, and control ideas, are thereby able also to influence and create reality, which is what we call magic. We know that when we zoom out, looking at the images of outer space from satellites, that the universe tends to move in spirals in orbital systems such as solar systems. And the spirals makes me think of Uzumaki, which I've read and loved. But it's also creepy. Anyway, we also know that when we zoom in deeply with powerful microscopes, that atoms move in orbital systems, such as electrons circling a nucleus. As above, so below. This implies that the universe is fractal. A fractal is when a larger image can be broken into smaller pieces and still contain the blueprint and model of the whole within it. A single cell contains within it all of the information of what the cell is a part of within its DNA. Holographic reality. When we tie in the idea that the universe is mental and thoughts within the universal mind, we get the notion that the universe is holographic. A hologram is also fractal, with each part containing the larger image. Fractal cosmology seems to be in alignment with this idea. Fractal cosmology is a theory by physicists that the universe is inherently fractal, and sometimes believed to be self-generating through this fractal nature. The central concept to remember is that every particle of matter contains the blueprint of the entire universe from the Big Bang. This strongly implies that the information of the whole universe is within us. What is different about holograms, in a nutshell, is that the three-dimensional illusion of a hologram is formed from light, and the image that is being projected is non-local. Our brains work similarly. All the images we see and sounds we hear and other sensory information initially originates from somewhere outside of our heads. However, the brain takes this external information and processes it, allowing us to perceive the world. The mind can be tricked as well, perceiving things that aren't there as if they are there. This is demonstrated with hallucinations as well as hypnotic suggestions. This indicates that reality is more subjectively perception-based than objectively concrete and real. Many philosophers and theologians have grappled with the question of whether reality is a dream, and whether we are the dreamer or the dreamed. In Hermetic philosophy, the answer is both. We are but the dreams and thoughts of the infinite mind, but as microcosms of the infinite mind, we are also dreamers. If we can focus our attention on both the microcosmic inner space of mind and the macrocosmic outer space of physical reality, we can create profound levels of sacred space. some of this is really interesting to think about. And about the pentagram. Thus, pentagrams are 5-pointed geometric stars, and pentacles are pentagrams with a circle around them. Neither symbol is a sign of evil or devil worship, whether it is right side up or upside down. The pentagram has a history that is hard to pinpoint, but we find it in almost every religious and mystical tradition, including those of the Greek, Babylonian, Celtic, Egyptian, Druid, Kabbalistic, Christian, and Chinese. Witches view pentagrams as a symbol of balance, protection, and divinity. The pentagram represents the 4 elements, with the top point being the 5th element of quintessence or divinity. An upright pentagram represents the material ascending to the spiritual, while a reversed pentagram represents spirit descending into matter. Which we are spirit, and here we are in matter. If a pentagram is upright, going clockwise from the top point of quintessence spirit, we have the element of water in the upper right-hand point, fire in the lower right-hand point, earth in the lower left-hand point, and air in the upper left-hand point. So yeah, and for the longest while, for many years, I was just basically Wiccan, though I was practicing on and off. And I was always hating people confusing the upside-down pentagram. Am I even saying that right? Pentacles, no. The upside-down, well, pentagram, pentacle, whatever. With Wicca, because I thought it was, evil, devil shit. And I'm like, no, that's not what Wicca is. Well, neither is that. And also, I now know Satanists, depending on the Satanist, probably. But I'm specifically talking about Anton LaVey Satanists, which are also basically atheists. They're not evil. They're actually not evil at all. I'm not a Satanist. I'm just saying I know they're not evil. And now I also know that it doesn't matter if the thing's upside down or right side up, that's not evil either. So, but I used to always be so annoyed when people would confuse the upside down thing for Wicca. And I'm just like, well, whatever. Witches tend to be animists. The word animist sorry. The word animist refers to one who embraces the concept of animism. Animism is derived from the words anima and animus, the Latin words relating to the soul, intelligence, and having a living nature. In the eyes of the witch, everything is alive, and anything with physical matter contains life force and intelligence. For the witch, nature is alive. The rocks, the water, the wind, the animals, the plants, the stars, the planets, and all things that we can perceive as existing within the material universe. As all things come from and are imbued with the quintessence of spirit, all things are holy and alive in their own right, and anything that has a physical existence contains within it a unique personality, energy, and expression of spirit. Before, I didn't actually know what the word animist meant, and I'm like, oh, I already believe that. And apparently I was an animist, and I didn't even know it. Before we begin looking outward to the energies of different planets and stars, let's start with our own planet that we're living upon. Just as humans have individual expressions of identity, yet are plugged into a collective unconscious of humanity that connects them as a species on a spiritual level, so too is nature. A plant carries the collective memory of its species, and each plant has its own individual spirit. The same is true for crystals, animals, and other expressions of nature. Just as humans can access the collective unconscious and its wisdom and history, as well as the ancestral river of blood, so too do other forms of life. For example, an owl is an individual animal with its consciousness, but it's also plugged into the broader collective consciousness of all owls. A rosebush has its own individual personality, and yet it is part of the larger memory and spirit of roses. Each piece of amethyst has its own identity, and is also part of the larger amethyst memory. The Earth is alive, witches understand that the planet itself is alive. The idea that the Earth is alive isn't just a spiritual concept. Chemist James Lovelock and microbiologist Lynn Margulis proposed the idea that the Earth is alive and called this the Gaia theory. The main idea behind the Gaia theory is that our planet Earth acts as a single intelligent, self-regulating system, much like an organism, and in turn, all life on the planet Earth is just part of a more extensive network. This is something that witches have always known. Gaia is alive, and we as humans, as well as the rest of nature, are just microcosmic parts that are codependent with the planet. This is similar to how we as humans have tons of microorganisms and bacteria within us that allows us to live, digest, and heal ourselves. As such, witches are often reverent to Gaia and see themselves as having a divine mission to be caretakers, protectors, and stewards of our planet. Which is another reason I really hate AI. Raven Grimassi discusses a fascinating concept that he terms the organic memory of the Earth, in which all things decompose and become part of the land itself. As I previously discussed, our blood contains the genetic memories of our ancestors. The experience, memories, wisdom, and history of all biological matter are absorbed back into Gaia when we die and decompose within her, where our ashes are scattered. Gaia holds all of this wisdom within her. Grimassi likens this to the Akashic records of Eastern thought, but being independent of it and residing within Gaia. Witches, shamans, and mystics have known for a long time that crystals are not only alive with specific energies, but that they also record memory. In fact, we use crystals to operate most of our computer technology, due to their ability to receive, hold, and project information. When we zoom in on dirt with powerful microscopes, what do we see? We see that it's made up of tiny organisms decomposing plant and animal matter, minerals, and crystals. These crystals are recording all the information of what is being devoured by Gaia, and the land contains the memories of all that have existed upon it, from dinosaurs to our ancestors. Independently, nuclear physicist Robert Beck examined the brainwave states of witches, psychics, Christian faith healers, shamans, and other healers and discovered that the majority of them exhibit the brainwave pattern of 7.8 to 8 Hz cycles when healing or getting into an altered state of consciousness. It explored brainwave states earlier that I didn't go through. We've already explored this brainwave state earlier. This is the alpha brainwave state, 7.5 to 13 Hz, linked with psychic ability, meditation, daydreaming, and visualization. So if the Schumann resonance is the mind of Gaia, this would lead one to conclude that the consciousness of Gaia is an alpha, and perhaps when we slip into alpha, we are aligning ourselves to the consciousness, dreams, imagination, and memories of Gaia herself. This dream-altered state of consciousness is associated with the astral. As such, we are influenced by Gaia, and Gaia is affected by us. Sorry, my nose is itching. And this, I found interesting. I have never had sleep paralysis. I've never had that myself. I have a friend who deals with it, though. Or has dealt with it, and I figured maybe this will help somebody, so that's why I'm going to read it, because I don't know. Anyway, a typical experience, it's about astral projecting before that, but a typical experience when one is about to astral project, but something messes up, is that the person's mental awareness in their astral body connected to their physical will Sorry, let me start that over. A typical experience when one is about to astral project, but something messes up, is that the person's mental awareness in their astral body, connected to their physical, will wake up while the body is asleep and not linked to this astral double. It's as if instead of choosing the double as the primary focus, it will decide to remain with the person. This phenomenon is called sleep paralysis, since the physical body is completely paralyzed, as it is every time we sleep, so that we don't physically enact our dreams. A common report with sleep paralysis is that there is usually a dark, shadowy figure in the room. Sometimes this is reported as a hag witch, a monster, an alien, or a demonic entity. My personal belief is that it isn't any of these things, but instead that this is the astral double we would typically enter to astral project. Because the astral body is connected to primal emotions, desires, and fears, it is unstable in its form. When one wakes up to find their body paralyzed and sees a shadowy figure in the room, it's only a normal reaction to become scared and panic. Since the astral body surrounding the physical body and the astral body's double are intricately linked, being the same energy body split into two, our astral double automatically takes on our fears and panic and takes on a hideous form. If you ever find yourself in a situation of sleep paralysis, I have found that staying calm is the best thing you can do. The more you panic and resist, the more terrifying the experience will be. From this state, you have two options. You can re-enter your dreams, or you can wake yourself up. If you want to re-enter your dreams, try to remain calm and close your eyes, while focusing on the swirling patterns behind your eyelids. This will usually do the trick. If, however, you wish to wake up, the preferred method to wake up is to direct your willpower to your toes and try to use all of that willpower to wiggle them consciously, breaking the paralysis of sleep. A more natural method is to scrunch your face as if you've smelt something rotten. The key is to focus on one small part of your physical body and not the whole thing. Another method to wake up is to try to cough, which is an action that the mind allows the physical body to do while dreaming, which will then give you a moment to regain control of your body. I believe that it is the astral body part of the soul that gets fragmented through traumas and left in different places within time and space, which is also something I've been hearing in the spiritual community, and I've worked with, or been trying to work with myself, and it's helped. So, it also fits other things. I believe that it is the astral body part of the soul that gets fragmented through traumas and left in different places within time and space. It is these astral fragments that are called back in a process referred to as soul retrieval, in which a magical practitioner is luring back aspects of ourselves to be reintegrated for wholeness. Keeping in mind that the astral body is a part of the lower self, think of it very much like a scared or wounded animal or a child that runs away to avoid more pain and abuse. These are parts of ourselves that are hiding out of fear due to a traumatic event, just like a scared animal or child, which performing a soul retrieval must gain these fragmented aspects of the self's trust and prove that it's safe to return. Which is also, like I mentioned, like the trauma healing, something I've been working with, and that fits it perfectly and is helpful. And people will call it different things, but these different things, not just this, but so many things, end up in so many different religions and spiritualities, just called by different names. So yeah, that's all of the notes. Obviously, there's a lot more in this book. I didn't say any of the exercises. It says there's 90 of them. Like I said, there's also spells and correspondences and even more information jam-packed into this thing. If you're still here and it sounds interesting, I'd recommend picking it up. By all means, like I said somewhere in this video, you don't have to agree with me or the book. But thank you for watching if you made it this far. Regardless, so like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to. Thank you for watching. Namaste, and have a nice day.